Nothing we say is investment advice. Please pause on all 3 pages of this disclaimer and read it. I had to add myself to the stage. Apologies. Good morning, everybody. Cowboy here, and it is 8:30 a.m. EST, 8:31 actually. And interesting chart here. Let me zoom out. Sorry about all the mess on the screen. USDJPY. This is a high time frame chart. This is a daily chart. This is going back really to October. This chart, as I have it here, and this move down is just very dramatic. This is very dramatic. This is a currency chart. This is the USDJPY. And this has gone down 4% in 3 days. Now, you have to understand, 4% on a currency is huge. That's a very large move, folks. To see a currency head down 4% is remarkable. Yeah, crypto, stock's pretty remarkable depending on the stock. But for a currency to head down, a sovereign currency, you're talking about and by the way, this is not the Japanese yen heading down. It's the yen heading up. It's the US heading down against the yen. Now, there are some things that go along with this. There's news. Why is this happening? How does it affect everybody? We're going to talk about that. But the reality is that this is like a great trading opportunity, right? Now, price tends to want to fill gaps. What is a gap? Well, a gap happens when the market closes. For example, we go back to this level here, back October the 3rd, and there's a gap up from here to here, right? Price never touched this area. I'll use a different drawing here just to make it a little easier to see, but you'll notice that in that area, as I zoom in, price never touched this area, right? And it still hasn't gone back down to touch that, but it looks like it's about to. Now, price tends to want to always come back and touch these gaps. Doesn't always happen, especially on the CME. This is not the CME, which is the mercantile exchange. That's futures, if you will. So that said, that might be why we don't really worry about gaps being filled, but generally gaps get filled. It's almost always how that works. Hasn't happened yet. May happen soon. You know, that's down here. However, we may see or may not see price come back to fill this gap that happened on Sunday. So this was the Sunday open, okay? And price jumped from there to there. There's no price in between that area. In this area, there's nothing. So price tends to want to come back and fill those, but this is a big move. And the reason this is heading down, give me a moment here. Give me a second. Sorry about that. So yeah, that's we'll see what happens with this, but the Japanese parliament was dissolved. Okay. That's a big deal. That is a huge deal. You have to understand that's a huge part of their government that they just dissolved. That's a huge part of their legislative process that no longer exists. And if there is precedent for it, it's not like it's never happened. So, you know, that said, though, the thought is that they're going to try to protect their currency. What has always happened in the past with the Japanese yen is that it's been used as a liquidity source for the world, really, but for the Western world, right? So basically, Japanese debt is printed. It's very cheap. The rest of the world takes that debt, uses it to fund the markets, and then Japan buys debt from the rest of the world and other assets with their cheaply printed debt. And of course, while they can invest that, and while there is a model for that to work, their population suffers because their currency is just devalued over time, right? So it's ultimately, it's not a very healthy model, not in the long term. So that said, their parliament is dissolved, and that seems to give the market the impression that they're going to protect their currency. Now, the last time that we saw Japan try to protect its currency was in July of 2024. So you could find that. Yeah, here it is. Now, this is the dollar going down against the yen because obviously they're going to protect the currency. Now, they did have a rate hike a couple of months before that, and then they had a second hike, which is when the word got out, it's like, hey, Japan's going to protect the currency and unwind the carry trade. The carry trade is what I just told you about, where they use their debt to fund the markets around the world. So let's see what happened to the NASDAQ in July of 2024 when that happened. And this is important. This is going to come back around to what may happen to the markets now. But look at this. July 2024, the last time they tried to protect their currency, the NASDAQ and all the other indices as well. I could go back and show this to you on the Dow, on the SP 500. Markets fell, and they fell not just a little bit. The NASDAQ fell 17%. Billions erased, if not trillions. And I think it was trillions. So you have to understand, if this happens, sorry, one second. I got a client asking me a question. All right, sorry. So yeah, this is where we are right now. And if in fact that happens, then we might see some turbulence in the US markets. Now, what might also be the case is that deals were made, US markets will be held up with who knows what mechanism. But this all remains to be seen. We're just going to have to see how this goes, everybody. Right now, the NASDAQ is holding up, though. It's it continues to hold up here. Every time it falls, it bounces. And in this current environment, with Japanese yen doing what it's doing, it actually is doing rather nicely. It continues to move back up. Now, we talked about this yesterday. V and I talked about this on the Rogue show. And essentially, markets must go up. Let's see. Markets must go up because that's U.S. pensions. That is how the elites extract wealth from everybody else. I mean, the markets are the primary mechanism of wealth for the elites extraction around the world, and the U.S. market is the largest tool. Okay. So that said, yeah, they're holding it up. I don't know with what mechanism or funding. We'll figure that out. It's almost not that important. I mean, it kind of is, but I could tell you that if in fact the Bank of Japan continues to unwind and they do hike their rates, if we see that happening, and if especially they want to do this independent of what the rest of the world wants, we could see the markets have a lot of volatility, and volatility is what we like at Algo Factory, right? We make money on that. We love volatility. So I'm going to leave that there for you, though. For now, the NASDAQ heads up. Its all-time high is 26,387. And if I flash over to the indicator stack, which is, look, algorithms are awesome, and I make money on them. In the end, if you're really trying to find out what price is going to do on a very quick basis, you have to use price action. And the core of my analysis, it relies on price action, right? So I'm still very old school. The algos just give me an edge, right? The indicator stack, the algos give me an edge. And that's what that's about. That helps me understand the price action. And it looks right now like price is going to go ahead and push towards that all-time high. And at this trajectory, and it doesn't mean this trajectory has to continue, by the way, but at this trajectory, if this continues, at some point it could always just pop up. But if it can't just pop up, then, we might be touching that high anytime between, maybe halfway through February, something like that, which is 2 weeks away, maybe. It depends. Like, these things do have a way of popping up. And a lot of that's going to depend on a lot of stuff, right? So that said, let's go ahead and move on. Let me see. We got a little time left. I started a minute late. Take a look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin is holding right now, and it does seem to be holding in this pattern. So let me just start with a fresh chart here. I do think that Bitcoin is done for this cycle. We might see a pop-up, but there was an attempted move up last week that was roundly rejected. And I think a lot of energy was spent there, and price came up to 98,000 and rejected, right? So if I were to map this out, we had our all-time high, price came down, came back up for an attempt to break upwards, and then is going to continue to either go sideways or not. We don't really know. this does look like a particular pattern of complacency, which usually lasts 2 to 6 weeks. And this is, forgive me, a few weeks to 2 or 3 months. That's so that could go a little ways. We have a little time yet left. And also, the world's a little bit different with Bitcoin. Right now, you have the large financial players are openly in it. Not to say they were not in it before, but now they're openly in it. And so, we may see this continue and do all kinds of crazy things, but just to look at the higher time frame picture, this does look like it's just going to go sideways a bit and then make its way down. And it could happen soon, could happen later. I don't think we're going to see a new all-time high until another 4 years from now. And I have been saying that for some time. I've been saying that since it broke below 100, right? 100,000 back in like October, November. I have felt and seen and calculated, not just felt, but calculated that the 4-year cycle is over. Now, does that mean it's over? No, there's always that chance, that probability that I think is increasingly growing smaller, a smaller and smaller probability that this is going to continue down. That's what I think. I think this will, or forgive me, I think that the probability is shrinking that this can pop up and grab new highs. It's there. It's always there. There's always that chance that somehow they cause it, to come up and do that. If it does that, I think it'll be an attempt to, to bring in some hopeful people and dump on them. That's what I think. And we saw this. We saw this in the last cycle where price made an all-time high, made its way down, and this move down from the all-time high in the last cycle was about 60%. That's huge. Price went from 3,000, made it up to 70,000 almost, right? Really 65,000. It fell 60%, came back up and broke highs. This is not common for a top formation. This is effectively it's a double top. It happens, but it came 140% after falling 60%. That's remarkable. I don't expect for that to happen. I really don't. Now there are some things that tell me it won't probably happen, but in the end, anything can happen. I mean, that's just one thing to understand. But there's a particular metric that has occurred that tells me that that double top that happened back in 2021 is less and less likely. I don't think we're going to see it. It doesn't mean we won't see it, but I think we're done for new all-time highs with Bitcoin for the next 2 or 3 years. I think we're going to see Bitcoin head back down to maybe below 30,000. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but I think that's what's going to happen. I think you're going to see it hit 30,000, 25,000. I know Via the Gorilla thinks in the same range. I think he's got a more precise number than I do. And then you're going to probably see it bottom crawl for a little bit. And that'll be, in my opinion, the time to buy it. Just the way I see it. And that all depends on, again, what's happening in the macro picture too. When I see price get to 30,000, I'm also going to be taking a look at what the world is doing with crypto and Bitcoin. And, we'll go from there. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and save. I have a trade that I threw on earlier this morning. I'm going to jump into the private live lab. We're going to talk about that. And what I do is I will share my trades, and they're just ideas. It's not for you to, take this trade. Like, we don't tell you to do that. But I will share my trades at Algo Factory. People get to see what I'm doing. There's also in the description below is a link. And what that's going to do is that's going to give you an algo. It's going to show you how I built an algo. And it's going to show you what traders do to connect that algo to their computer so they can trade when they're not even at the computer. The algo has to be optimized for your trading. So you're not going to want to just plug it in, but it shows you how it's all done. And it is an algo that you get to take, explore, optimize, and all that. And it'll put you on a list so you can find us. I send out weekly updates. I actually didn't do it yesterday. I just had too much to do yesterday. Never got that weekly update out. So apologies for that. I'll get it out today. And that'll be that. Thanks for watching. I'm going to head over to the private live lab, and we will see you tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. EST sharp. If you have any questions or any charts you want to see, drop it in the comments in YouTube. And as long as it's not some dumb shitcoin, I will go ahead and chart it. Thanks for watching. Oh, we got a note here. Nice, Remote. Yeah, hey, Remote. Crushes you 30, 40K, and then it's tight. Yeah, we'll see you about a super cycle, Remote closer. Hopefully, we see you back at Algo Factory pretty soon, though. I know you were talking about coming back here, so. But thanks for coming and watching and commenting. And like I said, if you guys want to see a chart, drop a request in the comments. Catch you later.
Join us or die.
Just kidding. You're not going to die. We love you.